When companies meet the joint due diligence standard, it shows that they can source minerals responsibly. To demonstrate that your company meets the joint standard, you can use an assurance process. There are two to choose from: the Copper Mark Assurance Process and the RMI's Responsible Minerals Assurance Process, RMAP. Both assurance processes use the joint due diligence standard and audit tool. So both processes have the same 5 steps, with small differences that we'll point out along the way. Here we'll show you the 5 steps you'll go through during the assurance process. The first step is to commit to the assurance process. During this step, you'll apply online and identify the auditor to schedule the assessment. Apply online at the Copper Mark or the RMI website. Here you'll be prompted to sign the necessary agreements and upload pre-assessment documents. Sign up for the assurance process by signing the service agreement and non-disclosure agreement. Then fill out some basic information in the pre-assessment questionnaire or checklist. To complete the commitment step, identify the auditor. This works differently with the Copper Mark and the RMI. For the Copper Mark, choose your auditor from their list of approved assessors. You're then responsible for scheduling the audit directly with the auditor. You'll pay the assessment fees to the auditor. With RMAP, the RMI chooses an auditor. If there's an auditor you prefer, you can request the RMI's approval. Contact the auditor to schedule the assessment, but contact the RMI about the assessment fees. Once the assessment dates are confirmed, your company will appear on a list showing that you're actively participating in an assurance process. For both the Copper Mark and the RMI, there's a management fee for each assessment. If you've already had an assessment through another assurance program, you may not need another assessment right away. Reach out to the Copper Mark or the RMI to find out if another assessment program can be cross-recognized. The next step is to send in the pre-assessment documents to the Copper Mark or RMI. The first document, the self-assessment, is voluntary, but completing the self-assessment helps prepare you for the assessment. You can use the Joint Due Diligence tool to conduct a self-assessment of your management systems. It shows you the areas where you're ready for the assessment and areas where you could improve. If you're preparing for an RMI assessment, you'll also need to send in these pre-assessment documents. Send them at least 3 weeks before the assessment. Then you'll need to undergo the independent assessment that you scheduled during the commitment step. The assessment should take place within a few months and no more than a year after making your commitment. Auditors will visit your site to conduct the assessment. They'll assess your site and issue a report to you and the Copper Mark or the RMI. Based on the audit report, the Copper Mark or the RMI issues the audit determination letter. This indicates whether your site is in conformance or non-conformance. To be conformant, you need to meet all the criteria, fully or at least partially. This will be indicated in your conformance status. If there are any criteria that you don't meet at all, you'll need to address them. To become conformant, carry out an improvement plan or corrective action plan. The plan should address any areas where you don't meet the standard or only partially meet the standard. First, develop a plan for each area. The RMI provides plan templates. You can use these templates for RMAP and the Copper Mark assurance process. Then, carry out your plan, making sure you fully address all issues. Then, close out the issues. That means an auditor will verify that you carried out your corrective actions. The auditor will request evidence, like documents or photos. In some cases, they may need to return to your site to verify the corrective action. For the Copper Mark, you have to fully meet the joint standard within 12 months of your commitment. That means the earlier you do the assessment, the more time you have for the improvement plans. For RMAP, you need to close out issues during the corrective action period, which lasts 90 days. There can be 3 of these periods for each assessment. Once you close out all the issues, your facility will fully meet the joint standard. For the RMI, you'll be listed on the public RMAP conformant list. For the copper mark, you'll appear on their completed assessments list, with a note that your facility fully meets the standard. Customers check these lists when they make sourcing decisions. To verify that you continue to conform to the joint standard, you'll need to be reassessed. This happens every 3 years for the copper mark and every 1 to 3 years for RMAP. In the meantime, you still need to demonstrate that you remain conformant. You do this by, each year, publicly reporting on your due diligence and reporting to the RMI or copper mark. We'll show you how this works in the next course. If you make certain changes to your operations, you might need to be reassessed early. If you make any of these kinds of changes, notify the copper mark or the RMI to see if you need to be reassessed. If there's a significant change, a reassessment may need to be conducted sooner than the standard timeline. For example, if you change mining methods or your source of primary materials, you should notify us. Or suppose that a grievance was raised, and that grievance indicates a nonconformance with the joint standard. You'd need to notify the RMI or the copper mark. By completing these 5 steps in the assurance process, you show your customers and stakeholders that you source minerals responsibly. In the next course, we'll show you how to ensure your management systems meet the joint due diligence standard.